I have an accounting practice here in town. I've been doing it since 1982, part-time, 1989, full-time. And I also write and publish about the accounting blog, which won some awards a few years back. And so I do a lot of things when it comes to money. This isn't going to be a tax class, so it's not going to be boring. But we're going to talk about things that you're going to face very quickly in life. Then we're going to break it into 3 parts. So we're going to have 25 minutes, a 5-minute break, 25 minutes, 5-minute break. And we're going to finish it off. First part, we're going to talk about something really short and sweet, which is going to be a resume. And then we're going to talk about reading your W-2 and your paycheck stub. And then we're going to move on to what it's going to cost to live. And then I'm going to teach you how to get rich, okay, financial independence. So nobody wants to be rich, but they want financial independence. They can do what they want. So what I would like to do is I would like to know what everybody was young at my age. What grade is this? Senior, junior? Is it? So who's a senior? Juniors, sophomores, freshmen. Okay. So that's the whole gamut. Some of this you guys are going to face pretty quickly. Some you might be facing in a few years. But the goal is that you want to get a good understanding of money, because if you don't, well, the world's going to teach you in a hard way. About 5% of the people have money when they retire, 20% have some, 5% have a reasonable amount. About 50% have a negative net worth, which means you're living on Social Security, which is just wonderful fun. And another 20% probably have some net worth, but it's probably pretty small. My goal is to get you there very quickly. I've dealt with people that retire at 30. Okay, they got 7 figures, which is $1 million. So what we're going to do is start out with the basics. I got a couple of handouts. I don't know if I have enough. I made 20. So what I'm going to do is have you guys would be in the front row because I got somebody to do that. You get these out to everybody. And how many of you work a job right now? Okay. Great. Excellent. How many of you have written a resume? Did they teach you how to write a resume? This is a live, actual, real resume that came into my office in this month. I did not hire the person because she got a job someplace else. Let's do a temporary service. Her name is Kimberly. I don't know the last name. When you do a temp service, they keep it private because they don't want me hiring all behind and things like that. But the first thing you'll notice about this resume is it's really short. Okay. Einstein said that you should make everything as simple as possible and no simpler, including this. If you read a lot of resume reports or these programs on how to do a resume, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll have you writing a couple pages and a cover letter. If they don't ask for a cover letter, don't they get it. Cover letters are there for one reason, for me to exclude you as an employer. Right? When I see cover letters, you can say things that will hurt you. I've never ever hired somebody because I'm like, oh my God, look at that cover letter. Make grammatical errors, spelling errors, not easy. It's just easy. Okay, go and I move on to the next one. This is a really nice resume. What does a short resume like this tell me? Without even reading a word, it means one of 2 things. Either you're really young and you don't have a work history, or you're like me and you've been working for 40 years doing the exact same thing. And I don't care about all the other stuff that you have. But now let's use this resume and start thinking about how you would write a resume. So let's use my example of what my life is, what should go on a resume and what should. First of all, you want the job that pays good money, a good paying job that pay good money, have good benefits, require a resume. So when I started out as a farm boy. Okay, so I grew up on a farm. I milked cows. Okay. In 1982, I graduated from high school. And in 1984, our family farm went bankrupt. So I wasn't farming anymore. That's why I got interested in money. From 82 to 89, I was doing taxes part-time. This is different from my dry erase books. My penmanship will improve as a whole. And in 1989, I went full-time. So, as taxes. Now, in between here, for about 15 years, I have 10 acres, I have a small farm, and I had about 50 steers and chickens, things like that. So I was farming. So let's say I quit my job and I say I'm done, I want to retire, but I like to do a little something on the side. What should go on my resume? So I want to go, we won't be doing this, but let's say I wanted to work part-time at H&R Block. And I just wanted to work taxis and make a little money. I turn in my resume. What should go on my resume? This is a likely crowd. One thing, I've been doing taxes for 38, 39 years. That's what I did. I don't need to fill in the rest. But let's say I'm sick of farm or sick of taxes. I just don't want to see numbers anymore. So I go to my neighbor down the road, I live out in the country. I say, I'll help your cows. I'd love to do that. And I have to turn in a resume. Well, I know farmers probably won't ask for a resume because they just talk to me. But let's say I needed a resume. So what would go on that? I say, yeah, I grew up on a farm. I milked 200-300 cows a day, 365 days a year. It's been a few years. I had some steers. You guys know me. I'm down the road here. Yeah, they're doing taxes on the side and that kind of stuff for 30, 40 years. We all have our crimes, right? But I focus on what's there. Now, if I go for the farming job, I'm going to say what I've been doing for 38 years doing taxes. If I'm going for a tax job, I'm just going to go without taxes. What you don't want to do on a resume is if you get a job for 2 weeks or an internship or a couple of jobs for you got 30 different little jobs that you're practicing, please do not submit that. Because it's going to hurt you. A resume can be 2 pages, and I know people will disagree with me on this, but I think resume should never be more than 2 pages unless it is really something important. I don't think resume should even be more than a page. This is beautiful because it's half a page. I can read it and I know instantly that I never met the person, don't know anything about her, but that she's a 20-year-old female. So I know she didn't have a lot of experience, but she did a few things. That's all I need to know as an employer to hire her for what I was. It was going to be a front desk job, the administrative assistant. So, any questions on that? Now I'm going to have a handout for a W-2 and a paycheck stub. Well, see, I complained it was kind of late. I know I'm in church, but it's not Sunday morning, right? So I got 2 to come in. Now you got yourself a job with that nice resume. Now you got to make sure the employer pays you correctly. If you're with a larger employer, that may not be a bad deal. If you're with a smaller employer, it could be a deal. These are from ADP. The 2 big payroll processors are ADP and Paychecks. I actually refer to ADP in my office, so I am a little bit biased, but I have found Paycheck stuff wrong. I found Paychecks wrong. What I was going to do here is have a little spiel on reconciling your bank accounts and credit cards, checking account, things like that. I didn't because there won't be enough time, but please do that because I do a lot of reconciling in my office, and on average, 1 to 3 mistakes happen per client per year. Now, I know they have a lot more entries, but almost all, 95, 98%, somewhere in there, of all reconciliations that are wrong are in the bank's advantage. So you want to do that, get money. Now, once in a while, it's at my advantage, well, then that's okay. So these 2 things are the things that not only you have a job, these are the things that are going to define you financially, how much money you have. This here's your paycheck stuff for 1 period. It does, I think it's a New York person, so you don't have to worry about some of the New York tax laws or New York things. And then this is going to be your W-2, and this is what your income is for an entire year. So when you come in to see me or some surrogate of me, we're reconciling basically your entire year's income. So you want to have somebody that's competent, you want to have somebody that knows what you're talking about, and somebody that cares. Now, this first step, let's start with the paycheck stub and look at a few things that are on the paycheck stub. So you're gonna, and there's a lot of material here that doesn't show up on the W-2. I just have my own here, and then I might, as I said, I have enough for 20, but I didn't know how many would come in. So on the left-hand side of the screen, or on your paycheck stub is going to show your current as well as your year-to-date income. So you're going to see your income on top over time, tuition. Tuition is something that if your employer pays tuition, sometimes they pay for your student loans now. There's actually a rule for a couple of years where that might work. Bonds and a few things, they can be US savings bonds, 401ks, your retirement plan. The stock plan is if you're buying stock in the company usually. Life insurance is included. However, life insurance, if it's a group plan, they can give you $50,000 of life insurance without including it in your income. And then you can actually have a loan. That would be your 401k loan. You don't want that. On the right-hand side, you're going to see the loan amount paid, group life, vacation hours, sick time, that sort of thing. This is something that you want to track, make sure that the numbers are always correct. There's some notes on the bottom there. Each one of these will be different based upon who is going to be dependent upon the employer because they may have different benefits. Up on top though, where the gray areas go, just above it on the left-hand side, you're going to see federal, state, and local, and you're going to see 3, 2, and 2. I pulled this from an ADP sample. It's not 100% clear, but what it is that 3, 2, and 2 is the amount of withholding, and then you see 25 with additional tax. What that is that you need to still figure out what your taxes are, because when you have withholding, that's not your tax, that's your deposit. You might get a refund, you might get more tax to pay. That is your exemption. So we won't go into the detail of the exemptions, but you want to make sure that that is correct. And if you don't like your refund, or if you have a balance due, that's where you adjust your withholding on your tax return. Now, the remainder then, that I think that is much more important, is when we look at the W-2, because this is really going to tell me what I want to know about you as a person. So when I'm doing your taxes, I actually know quite a bit about you just by looking at your tax documents. Sometimes I know more about you than you know about you because the tax documents say some things. I did actually put some things in pencil, so I'm going to kind of list what they are, and then I'm going to explain what you probably will run into, and then what you can do to use this to your advantage to get a lot of money. So this is a person that made $55,000 a year, but actually they made $60,000 a year. So this individual is New York, so you can kind of scratch that in the bottom. You'll see in the bottom that there's local wages, local taxes. That is not around here. There is no Wisconsin local taxes that come out of a paycheck. However, if you go to like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, you will, and New York City especially is going to have that. You're going to notice also on the top that in box 1 is $55,000. That's what you're going to pay tax on. Okay, so keep in mind, if your employer gives you $1,000, how much money do you have? It's called less than that. Because I don't know the exact amount, but you're going to pay 7.65% right off the top. So your first $1,000, you just lost $76.50. You just lost FICA. That's Social Security and Medicare. You like that. It's better if you're the employer, you're going to match it, so you double it up, but you pay half. Okay, 7.65. Now you pay an income tax that can be anywhere from 0 on the federal and state level. Wisconsin over 6%. Almost everybody pays. And then if you have federal, you're going to end up with whatever your income level is, but it can be 20, 30%. So you can lose a third to half of your money taxes if you don't think about it. So when I say you make $1,000, I'm only making less even if you pay 0 income tax, because you have to pay the FICA tax. So the goal here is to use this information and understand what this means, because as we get into the second part, we're going to look at what it costs to live, and then the third part, we're going to look at how we can use this and living expenses and how you can actually become wealthy very quickly, and then you're financially independent. You can choose your own path in life. So you can choose to work the job somebody else wants you to work and be foolish, or you can do it for a short time and then work your way out. So the difference when you see on your W-2, how many of you guys have had W-2s already? Some of you might have gotten W-2s. So when you got W-2s, mom and dad just took it into the account and did it for you. So Now you don't have a lot of expenses, you don't have a lot of things going on. With your work, okay, you get W-2s. Do you get a retirement plan? You get a retirement plan. Well, you're gonna love what I'm gonna tell you in the third section. Oh, do you use your retirement plan? Okay, you're gonna want to start that as soon as you can. Because when you see the numbers, unless you don't care about money, I guess. The number $55,000 is a taxable amount, but mine's 3 and 5. Unfortunately, if you put money into a retirement plan, you pay FICA tax on all of it. So the difference, when you look down in the box 12, you're gonna see $5,000. That's because somebody, in this case, you work for a hospital. Hospitals and schools have what's called a 403B. You're probably gonna get a 401k. It's in the 4s of the tax code. All you have to remember is it's kind of what you say. They're all the same animals, just a little different dance to them. Now, 401k is gonna have matching usually. And this is something that you take out of your paycheck. And in this case, with our example here, this individual took $5,000 out of their paycheck and put it into their retirement account. And the government said, we don't want to charge you tax on that, no income tax. So that's a good thing. It also grows tax deferred, which means you pay no tax when it grows. And I'll show you how you can have it tax-free later as well. But there's some things you can do with that. So you get the, so when I say, when you get $1,000 from your employer, how much do you get? I say less than that. When you take this $5,000 out, what do you get? More than that. Okay, you're going to actually get a bonus tax-free. And that's going to continue to accumulate as time goes on. So the reason why I put a few things in the bottom is that I penciled in a 403B on that E, but then in the bottom there in 12B, I penciled in the codes actually for a 401k for a traditional and a Roth. And what that is this. If you have a traditional retirement account, you take money out of your pocket from your wage, you put it into your 401k, and it is tax deferred, you pay no tax on it. If you do it with the Roth, then you still pay tax on it, but all the profit is tax free. That may seem strange, but let's use a little example. So let's look at what you know how to calculate rates of return real simple. Have you ever heard of the rule of 72? Okay. Rule of 72 basically says divide the interest rate by 72. Some people say 70. And that's how long it takes to double your money. Now, you have a 401k probably, and you're probably going to want to do the Roth provision. Why? But you got to look at the whole fact. You pay no tax. Unless you make over $12,000, you pay no tax. And if you pay no tax, and even if you do, it's going to be rather low, then the answer is going to be that you want to put it into the Roth because you're getting no deduction. And if I'm getting no deduction, then I want tax-free growth. So let's look at this for a little bit and say, let's say we have $100. You take $100 out of your pocket for work, and your employer's going to match whatever percentage is, but let's say the $100. So now we're going to have a match, and we're going to have you're going to match, or employer's going to match $100. How old are you? You're 17 years old. This is the real back of the envelope. This is going to be kind of fun because it really looks kind of nice. If I say the stock market over a long haul makes 10% a year, some years more, some years down, some years, at the end you shake it up about 10% a year. Well, that's real easy for our calculating because that tells me real quickly every 7 years your money doubles. Pure and simple. Well, you're at 17, so every 7 years, 24, 31, 38, 45, 52, 59, 66, 73. Okay, so we're going to have 8 doublings. Have you ever heard of the old trick that was played on a king that said, here's a chessboard? And the smart mathematician said, I'll make a deal with you, king. You pay me every day. I'm going to put 1 grain of rice on the first square. Every day you have to double it. Doesn't sound like a lot. You can use it on a 30-day calendar. And what do you got? Not very much the first week. It starts to look like something the second week. The third week, you're going, oh my God. And by the time you get to the fourth week, it's more grain of rice than there are grains of rice on the planet. It's compounded. It's huge. So we go to A, we have $100. Now, here's the thing. Your money that you put in, you can do this into a Roth. That means you can still pay tax on it. Your tax rate is 0. So you don't care. You want tax free in the future. Unfortunately, this amount here is going to be what's called a traditional. They have to do it that way, so that's going to be taxed. There's a reason why that's okay though too. It's not what we want, but it's still okay. So if you take $100 and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, by the way, I actually ran up to about 70 years of age. Why do I do that? It's not the normal retirement age. It's you're going to live at least that long, most likely. And the reason for that is you don't hit retirement at any age and say, give me all my money, bet it on black over at the casino, and that's it, done, call it a life. You're going to take money and you're going to take some of it out, and you're going to leave some for a legacy. And you know what a legacy is, right? And legacy is the money you leave, that's your inheritance, that somebody else's inheritance. Your legacy is their inheritance. So what happens here, now this is going to be tax free. All right, 100, 400, 800, 1600, 200, 100, 12,800, 25,000, 600. So, are you willing to give up $100 today for $25,000 and just wait? No, no. You just want to spend it now.
Oh, also good, yeah.
Okay. So, but here's the thing.
Good, right? Yeah.
This is one paycheck. So now you have 26 paychecks at 5 weekly. Multiply by 26. Now we'll do see, I'm kind of, as an accountant, I do math real easy because I only have so many fingers and toes. So this is how I do math. I just say add a 0 because we're going to add 26. So I'm going to say times 10. Times 2 is going to make it 50,000 or 500 and 500. 1, 2, $512,000, and then we have another 6. We'll just, for argument's sake, we'll just keep it low. Talking $500,000 for 1 year. One of the things you'll see, and I think this is very important, I think it's very vital in dealing with money, is starting now. The smartest thing you can ever do is start today. Start now when you're in high school, start shortly out of high school, start if you're in college, because you'll be rich by the time you're 30, 35. 30, 35, you can just say, I'll work whatever I want to work. I like doing a job, I'll do it. I can start my own business, that you can write your own day. Whenever you want to start, it's up to you. You tell me when you want to retire, I'll tell you the starting date. It's really your age when it's 50. Most people, what they do, if they overspend their money, they get to age 50 and they go, oh my God. And then by 65,
yeah.
they get them at 65.
Yeah.
Now here, and you've seen this probably before, but it's so important because you need to see it a million times so it sinks in. You have 2 twin brothers. They turn 18. The first twin brother saves $2,000 per year for 6 years to age 24. And his twin brother saves nothing at age 24, saves $2,000 a year all the way to age 65. Who has more money? Assuming, let's say, a 7%. Who has more money? The person that put in $12,000 or the person that put in $50,000, $75,000? Who has more money? It's the person. You start sooner, that's what it is. So with that, I like to keep really on pace. No dying. I've never had anybody die in any one of my presentations. but let's do close calls though. So let's take a 5-minute break. What I would do is I would ask, if you have any questions, I certainly can answer them. Then we can kind of jump to the next section. If you need a restroom break or something, that's up to you. I think 90 minutes is a long time to pound people through this stuff. So, anybody has any questions, or you want to just take 2 minutes to just stretch? You guys look comfortable. Let's warm up. Have you ever had, do a little segue? Have any of you guys ever, as part of school, had to give a presentation? Isn't it always hot? It is, right? And it doesn't mean you're nervous either, it just means it's always hot. You know what to start with, so ideally for me, 50 degrees would be a great temperature to have a presentation.
So I'm kind of confused about that question. The one you just had about the 75,000 and the 6,000. Do you get like like younger people get like a bonus? Is that why you need more? Or how does that work?
It's not about, people like the time in the stock market. It's not about time in the stock market. It's about time. When's the best time to invest? Is the market's overpriced. Who cares? That data starts now. Because if you start now, you have more time. The more time you're in, the more likely you're making money. So what happens is, if somebody's age 18 and the next person's age 24, remember when you go down to here, this guy now, this brother has $12,000 plus his interest or rate of return. So he's over. You gotta remember, in 10 years, he's gonna double in the market.
So that the other guy's just 6 years.
And the other guy, he's just started, he only has $2,000. How, by the way, how much do they have? How much does this guy have? This guy has around $1 million. This guy's got around 850 to 900. Well, I just know that. But there's certainly going to, it gets close after you get to age 65, and eventually if you put more money in, if you feed the beast, it's really easy to have more, just feed the beast. Which means you gotta work harder to earn more money, which you're not gonna spend and you're gonna invest. The longer you wait, the more money you gotta put in. If you say, I want $1 million, it's simple. $2,000 for 6 years. Wait until you're 60-something. You're gonna do smarter than that, you're gonna get it faster. We're gonna talk about getting that using this W-2. In the next section, we're going to hear in about 2 minutes, we're gonna talk about what it costs to live. Because, well, that's a big part of the equation. They figure that out with, Pete Adney, which runs the Money Mustache blog, he gets about 10 million page views, or 90. But he retired at 30. I made a little more money, so he had some advantages. But I wrote articles on this and published them in my blog where you can retire young if you want. You can even retire at minimum wage, though I don't recommend it. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm trying to be smart saying minimum wage. Oh my God, isn't that? No, it's not. But can it be done? Sure it can. I can, there's always something to cut. I mean, problem is with minimum wage, and now, minimum wage was last raised in 1998. We just had 7% inflation this year. That knocks 50 cents off of that and buying power alone per hour. That's just, I'm sorry, I just don't buy it. So everybody's probably back. We're at 2:31. Now I want to talk about something different that we're going to do on the dry erase board. How many of you think $30,000 is a lot of money? Well, let me ask this. What do you think is a lot of money? And there's not a right or wrong answer, okay? If you're, well, the real answer is, if I'm really poor, $10 is a lot of money. If I'm Bill Gates, I'm gonna need at least $1 million to move the needle. So, but what is a lot of money to you? For an income for a year? I think 30,000 is fair, starting out of high school, out of college. let's break this down a little bit. We move the point away from you this. I have to get my rating in. So now, 18, going off to college. Let's assume you're not living with mom and dad, because that's always cheap. By the way, if you're living with mom and dad, which usually stock it away as fast as possible, if you can convince mom and dad to let you live there at 24, remember that guy? All you gotta do is tread water for a while, and you're still gonna make it. But just in case mom and dad say, get out, we don't want you here, or you decide to get married, or you have a job that's further away, or you go to college. In college, generally, they require you, not all of them, but most of them require you the first 2 years to be on campus. Some will allow you to have off campus the next 2 years. By the way, I think it's I think it's a rough deal for people because you're 18, you're living at home, mom and dad have a roof over the top of your head, and if anything goes wrong, there's somebody to bail you out, and then you turn 18 and you throw everybody into the mosh pit. I'm not a big fan of that, but let's start out with what it costs to live. Because you have to know what it costs to live to know 30,000 is a lot of money. And if 30,000 is or isn't a lot of money, then we gotta ask, what are we gonna do with what we got so that we don't go broke? You guys all know Dave Ramsey stuff, right? Because you guys all hear that, right? Yeah. So you're hearing the Dave Ramsey. You have a question?
Yeah, so like I know, so Ramsey, yeah.
So Dave Ramsey is, I don't agree with everything that Dave Ramsey says, but I'm pretty much on the same page. And what I mean by that, here's where I differ from Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey says, don't have any credit cards. I say, grow up, you're an adult. Okay. Now I know that's a little more cruel, but Dave Ramsey's right. You know why he's right? It's most people for adults. I can prove it. Apple will have a negative net worth. So let's start out with what it costs to live. So because you're right out of high school or right out of college, you're probably going to rent. Let's assume you're single, just for argument's sake, because it's cheaper to live that way. What is rent for a one-bedroom apartment? How much?
Like 600 to 700.
And it's 700. I'm okay with that. Anybody disagree with that? You think it's higher too? I think it's higher too, but we'll use this to start.
A one bedroom, you said?
A one bedroom. You might find some low end, really some bottom feeding type, you know. Yeah, if you get some of the, if you go out to Lake Park and some of the newer buildings, some of that kind of stuff, anything that's kind of really nice, a good landlord that's not a scumbag, and you might run you $1,200. So we'll say 600-700. Now, the next thing we're gonna have is it's winter time in Wisconsin. You paid your rent. Would you like to heat your apartment? No, you keep it cold. What do you think it costs for heat, electricity, gas, water? What do you think roughly it costs? What do you think your mom and dad are paying?
Yeah.
You turn the thermostat a little different when you're paying the bill.
There's a reason on your dad gets to touch the thermostat.
What's that?
There's a reason on your father gets to touch the
That's right. There's a reason. His dad's usually the breadwinner, and if he's not, then mom's squeaking just as loud. But usually dad, because he says, "I don't want to work any more hours." He heard that thing, that little demonstration. He knows if he can put more away sooner the better. Well, $300 a month, $400 a month. Keep in mind, winter's going to be worse in Wisconsin. You're going to have gas bills that are higher, and if you have your electric bill might run $100 a month. What does water cost? It's usually $50 a month. Is it? I don't know the country, so I don't know what it is. Let's say $500 a month for all utilities. That's a little high. $400 a month. Ballpark. It'll be close. Okay, let's go to the low end. So we're going to have utilities. We're going to say we have 300. Now, how are you going to get to work? Right, and by the way, if it's close enough, that we're going to get to that. That's not a bad plan. You've been reading Mr. Bunny Mustache because that's how he married at 30. But you have a car, especially if you got to drive to work in this kind of weather. If it's, let's say your job is in Nita, that's a problem. So, what does a car cost? How many of you guys got a car? use mom and dad. You got your own car? I'm gonna pick on you because you seem to kind of live in the dream. Mom and dad Mom and dad said, she's 18. She's already prepared. She's ready to go. Nice knowing ya. Do you pay for your own car or do you just drive on it? Oh, okay. You don't have to give exact numbers. What do you pay for your car? Well, let me ask this. Is it a beater car, newer car, medium car? Beater. And nothing wrong with that. Dave Ramsey and I have something the same on that. I don't know what Dave says exactly, but what I tell people is if you ain't got the cash to buy that car, you can't afford that car. Okay. Now, I'm not gonna say that you have a monthly car expense because, well, first of all, Dave would probably walk into the door and smack the stupid out of me. But I'd hope that you try to have very little debt, if any at all. But now that you have transportation, we have a couple problems. You're gonna have, the first thing is, when you turn the key, you want it to start, so you need gas. $100 a month, $50 a month. $8. And what about insurance? $70 for insurance. Now keep in mind, when it comes to insurance, they're gonna take you guys out behind the woodshed, you're 24, 25, and get married. If you don't get married, it's about the same thing, but your insurance is like up here, they're assuming you're gonna total a car, you know, and mangle a bunch of kids and, you know, and then when you're 24, they think you're gonna be responsible, and as long as you don't have any accidents, you're okay. If you have an accident or one speeding ticket, that'll go to $200-300 per month. And it will, and your insurance, like you probably have 300, 500 for liabilities, things like that. You're probably down to 100,000 for liabilities. Here's why that's important. Because there's two ways to lose money. You can spend more money than you earn, the other way is that's sued away from you. In Wisconsin, we have what's called wrongful death. What that means is this: you're driving your car, you got insurance, you hit black ice, it's 200 time, no fault of your own. You hit a mom and 2 kids. Wrongful death for kids, $500,000 per, $350, $400. You just lost $1.35 million on the spot, and that's before you sue you for damages. So when you think about this stuff, you need to have insurance. Okay, you want to have life insurance, repairs and maintenance, periodically. Some months are done. Some months you have an oil change. Some months you might have to do some work. If you have a beater, the repairs and maintenance are going to be higher. Just because it's a beater, you trade a payment, you know, so instead of having a $500 or $600 or $700 payment, you have a $200 payment because you're gonna be putting stuff into it. It needs a muffler, it needs brakes, it needs, you know, whatever it may be. You have maybe $100 a month on the low end. 100, okay.
Your card is beautiful.
Oh, is this mom? Oh, well, okay.
Oh, man.
Now I'm
Don't show her the
I want to make sure I
recording.
keep on the right pace. How many, now, Dave Ramsey, people, you might know this, do you know what a sinking fund is? Sinking fund is what, and sometimes landlords will have these things, you know, call them their repair and maintenance funds. A sinking fund is where you're putting money away for something. It's in accounting, we have something called depreciation. If I have a car, I'm gonna depreciate that thing to 0 in 5 years. Well, it doesn't go to nothing in 5 years, but the ultimate value of your car is 0. I'm sorry, I know used car prices have gone up lately, we've heard that's why inflation is high, but when you buy a car, assume that 100% of that money will be lost at some point by someone. So I buy a third, my oldest daughter bought a new car, and she bought a new car because used car prices are so far out of whack. She could buy a new car for $25,000. You don't buy a car for that's 3 years old with 80,000 miles for $2,000 less. You buy a new car with a warranty. So but that 25,000 is worth 0 at some point in the future. It's worth 5,000 less the moment you're running off the lot. Once you're not in our environment today where we have pandemics and chip shortages, they can't produce no cars. Anything else we can think about with the transportation? The sinking fund is this, we have to include this cost. Why? Car's not gonna run forever. Now you're gonna pay cash? Or are you gonna hope Dave isn't around the corner looking at you? You need a loan. But what we're not gonna put on this list is interest, but we can talk about that in a little bit. So we're gonna put $100 a month into this, even though that's not a lot, that means in 1 year you have $1,200 to buy a $1,200 car. In 2 years, you got $2,400, 3 years, $3,600. If you're buying nicer or newer cars, you need $500 a month in it, and then you just don't have to pay any interest on it. Now, you have your rent, you have your utilities, you have your transportation. You have cable, Netflix, Amazon Prime. Are you gonna do any entertainment, or are you just gonna work and nothing else? Yeah, you're gonna work and nothing else. And by the way, if you do that, you'll be good. Then you make it 5 to 7 years max. You're probably gonna have some entertainment, things like that, but before we even get to that, you rent your house, your apartment, you have some utilities, you have transportation. What you're going to, you're gonna have, I'm not saying in the beginning, it's always tough. Because you're tough, you don't have, when I was growing up, other than walking both ways to school uphill in snow, even in the summer, the one thing that always was interesting to me is when I moved out, it just bugged me, and you'll have different things that bug you. I had no handkerchiefs. I had to spend, well, back then, by $8 was, back in the Stone Age, $8 was a lot of money. It was, but it's those little things that add up. I need some dishes, I don't need many, but maybe some forks, and you can get some plastic sporks, and that gets old quick. So you're gonna have $200 a month, maybe. Would you agree with me? You might have $200 of stuff you need just to kind of keep your household. We'll actually give that technical name, stuff. 200. Now you're gonna have to eat, because I said you're gonna eat off of something. I'm assuming you're gonna eat. How much does it cost to eat? A lot. You guys, the guys especially.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair. So $300 a month. Somebody guess. How many people think it's $300 or less?
Yes.
How many think it's $300 or more? You're probably right.
I live, well, for one person, it'd be different if they're living by yourself.
If you're living by yourself,
It'd probably be
I could do it for 300 or less because I have no problem. I would eat some lentils and I would eat some beans and rice. I do the Dave Ramsey thing if I had to. I certainly wouldn't get the 300, but we're gonna argue 300 for this now. And now we're gonna talk about entertainment. Okay, this is for the guys. You got your apartment, you got all this stuff, you're living the dream. And your girlfriend wants to go to the movie. That's $50 down the drain. I don't go to I watch my kids. And I'm just like, these guys. Oh, it just pains me to see them. Well, I was growing up again. But $50, I mean, what is a movie like? $12 now, something like that? Your girlfriend's gonna want you to pay for that. That's 24. He wants some popcorn. What's that like, second mortgage on your car?
Only go on Tuesdays. I got 2 tickets for $14.
Yes, and don't well, you don't want to bring on food. You eat before and after. So, but you're gonna want to have some entertainment. Maybe it's Netflix, the cheap one for $10. By the way, you don't have to go to a movie at all. You can just say, hey, we'll go to the library, pick up a movie. We can go and get Netflix. Or if you have Amazon Prime, you can get it. There's things you can do to get it cheap, but arguably, we're gonna have $100 a month, $200 a month, something like that. Do you buy gifts for your family at Christmas? Yeah, see, so December's a bad month, and then you got a sweetie now. February's coming up, with a box of chocolates. So money goes on in things that you don't expect. So to even say that entertainment at 200, that's one thing. But now we're gonna have this miscellaneous column. Nothing ever breaks in your apartment, nothing ever breaks on the car, big expense. I'm not talking about $100 maintenance, I'm talking tires need to go or something like that. Those things, I think you should estimate probably $300 a month, even starting out. Some months you might be less, some months you might have $1,000. That's why Dave says have $1,000 emergency fund. So our sinking fund's gonna go for the car, but how many of you guys wanna rent forever? No, you wanna own your own home?
Yeah.
You do, wonderful, you need a sinking fund, which is a fancy way of saying I'm saving some money for my house. What's a house cost, even a starter home? Can you get one for $100 grand anymore in the valley? Yeah, it's gonna need some work probably. Okay, so if you have $100,000 house, that, and we're talking, we're starting to talk this realm where it's like the mythical unicorn, and we don't necessarily see one, but they might be out there. How much money are you gonna need down for that? How much money do you need to buy that? An FHA generally is 3% down, you have some closing costs, you can probably buy a house for $5,000 down, but you still need $5,000 down. So you need a sinking fund. How soon, how long do you want to rent? 10 years? 5 years? So if it's 5 years, you need $100 a month. Okay, 100 times, 5 is 60, that's $6,000. You're in the. So we're gonna say $100 a month. Now, we quasi agreed that 30,000 might be a good amount of money. How many do you think you're gonna get a job straight out of the gate, right out of high school, 30 grand a year? How much is that per hour? How much is if you wanna make $30,000 per hour, how much do you, or excuse me, if you want to. Okay. Now, we were just talking, I'm sorry I confused that with my fees. If you wanna make $30,000 per year, how much do you need to make per hour working full time?
17, 18.
It's $15, okay? And how do I come up with that? So if you work 40 hours a week for 50 weeks, assuming that, again, this is, so it's basically there. You have about 2,000 hours, maybe 2,080. So I know that at $10, I'm at 20,000, and 1.5 makes me at $15. So if I make $15, it'll even dancing in the back of it. It's great. So if you want to make $30,000 per year, you need to make about $15,000. Now remember, you don't get to keep all of that. You're gonna lose $2,100 just to FICA. That's a guaranteed tax. That's assuming you don't pay any other tax. But how much is this per month? Divide by 12, 2,500, right? So you're getting $2,500 per month. We know you're gonna lose at least $200 to $300 for FICA. We know you're gonna probably, maybe you might have some other taxes. So maybe you get what, 2,000 net? Now keep in mind, don't have to remember all this, we just have to remember the concept. Right now, the standard deduction for single people is 12 and change, which means the first $12,000 doesn't count, no tax, and now you have another 18,000 almost. That's gonna be subject to tax, some at 10%, a little bit at 12. Okay, so I have 10,000 off, or 12,000 off the top. I'm down to 18,000. The next 10,000 is gonna be at 10%, and the next 8,000 at 12%. I know that I can just take this, I can say 1,000, and then 8 times 12 would be 960. So we're gonna have about $2,000, just a shy bit less of that. So if you make 30,000, you're single, you're gonna have 25 left. So you got about $2,000 per month, maybe 2,100. 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, about 22, 23. Wait a minute. We just agreed that you just rented one step above a culvert. You work full time. And you told me I was gonna get rich and retire in a couple of years. Where's my seed money? And that's the problem. That's what we have to look at here. You're right. You get $14 tickets to go to a movie, and when you're young, it is always tough. It costs more money. You do more things. You have kids, okay? If you decide to have kids, I know that sounds crazy, but some of you will someday, believe it or not, have kids. It's how the human species has moved forward. I'm here because my mom and dad decided to do that. My kids are here because I decided to have children. That's all expensive. You know how much I saved to buy a new house? Nothing. I own my house free and clear, have for 30 years, and I'm not moving. And if I did, I'm gonna get $400,000 or so for my house in cash. That's my seed money. What do you have? Youth. The vigor of youth, hope it's there. So what I'm getting at, you don't have to have big numbers. The biggest thing you have on your side, time, because you are young. If I can convince you to start early, that's going to be our third section here in a little bit. If we can start early, if I can tell you, okay, we have some numbers here, they're kind of rough. But now let's look at how to become wealthy. I mean, super wealthy. What I mean by super wealthy, I mean financially independent. So you don't have to be Steve Jobs wealthy or Bill Gates wealthy. How much? Well, let's do this to finish off before we take a 2-minute break, 5-minute break. How much do you need to be wealthy enough to not work? Come on, you guys gotta throw me something. Throw me a ball. Throw out a number.
Millionaire.
I think in today's world, you need $1 million. You can probably do it for less, but it's going to be pretty scrimpy. We're going to talk about something called the 4% rule. And that is a way of kind of gauging where you're at, how much you need to retire. You tell me how much you want to spend, I'll tell you how much you need to retire. I'll tell you how hard you got to work now and how much you got to save. Fair enough? 5 more minutes. I know this is a young crowd. I'll be funny anyway. Just smoke them if you got them. Don't do that. That's a waste of money. Don't do that. But if you need a restroom break, something to drink. And be ready for some interact. I want you to interact in this last part because it's important, because this is about you guys. And if you do what I put out, you're gonna do well. If you don't, I'm sorry, the numbers ain't gonna help you. I mean, I'm not making this up. I'm not putting this out here because I think it's funny. I'm putting it out because either you follow it and you win, and you're part of the 5 to 10%, or you don't, and you're like the other 60-70% that are whining and crying, complaining about how terrible it is, and taxes are terrible, and it's the politicians' fault. So, your fault. 5 minutes, guys.
So I think that's the final. For sure.
This will all become much more interesting in that space. Then it becomes-
I don't even know how to.
Triangle. Where's that?
Stop. Right there. Stop that.
I will. Okay, honestly, either. I still have.
You have one. Two stairs.
And then you throw me in there. And then you draw my future.
You would have to. See this?
So what do you guys think?
I mean, I'll probably yeah, so
And that's a different plan.
You don't live in.
It's the same place.
I don't want to say. I want to. Yeah.
But certainly, and no, it's just hard to do.
Jake Paul is
I always. And if you're a course in life, you have to do that. My argument So I would think this is true. Because they have the church for they have
Okay, if you next to
and that's what but you can get a lot more many churches. And it's certainly almost every church tries to we actually have ours it's a lot. Okay. I know there seems to be an awful lot of points.
I can see.
See a lot of different travelers, someone's grateful. And you said, geez, you have to go something after. Not good. It's a free trip. We are at 3 o'clock. We got 1 half hour left. So let me ask this. What is a good wage? What is a good wage for you guys to get? If you guys are looking for a job, what's the minimum you want to set? Oh, no. Well, I mean, that's an honest answer. You paid 7? I think that's a, they can do that for only a short period of time. It was fun. Oh, without, I'm sorry, I digress. I grew up on a farm, I know that. Yes. We just showed that $15 an hour is not very easy to make ends meet. Single person. So maybe $20 an hour might work. But there is a solution. Okay. As I said, it was cheaper to live alone. Is that true? How much is my rent per month? My rent is $600 to $700 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. How much is my rent for a 2-bedroom apartment? Or better yet, if I get married, I still only need a 1-bedroom apartment. Now, if I'm a person. And if my wife works, she makes 30,000. I sit around all day watching. I work. I make 30,000, then I got 60,000. It becomes much easier. And then you see, even with minimum wage jobs, it's not great, but then you're up to $15 an hour amongst people. Still not a good story. I would not recommend if you don't have to. So what we have to do is what you alluded to. We have to find a way to retire early. So let's look at what we want to do here. Well, first of all, there's a couple of taxes we would like to deal with, or Freudian slips, right? There's a couple of expenses that you're going to have, and so you want to cut some of those if you can. Some hurt, okay? So $14 tickets is fine, but if it's tight enough, you say, well, we go to the library, we rent a movie, we get some pop. Imagine what microwave is. And now you have a night out. It costs almost nothing. That certainly can dig into this entertainment, same thing with the miscellaneous, repairs and maintenance. You can do some things yourself. There's things that you can do to shave things off. And then you can cheat, not put money into your sinking fund. Of course, then you never get out of renting. And I hope that car's good because I'll just be biking. And by the way, biking, and if you're in town, maybe an Uber, maybe public transportation periodically, if you're close enough to work, you can actually bike in or walk in. So that makes a difference. But one of your big expenses is taxes. Now, we can't get rid of all of it, but we can get rid of some of it. So 401k. So we talked about this here. That little thing on your W-2 that says E, that could easily be a D. And a D means the 401k is going to be deductible the same way. So what we want to do is use a couple of rules. The first rule, again, we have talked about, and that is the rule of 72. That means about every 10 years we're going to double our money, but that's a lie. Because we have something called inflation. Inflation runs about 3% per year. It's been a little hot lately, it's been a little bit lower in the past, but over long periods of time, 3% is a nice way to look at it. And as you'll see in a second. Because if you make 10% in nominal terms, you're going to make 7% in real terms after inflation. That's how much you can buy. Because if you don't do that, your rent's going to go up, and you're not any further ahead if you keep up with inflation. So realistically, you're going to double your money every 10 years, but in buying power, every 7 years, it's going to take 10 years to double your buying power. So what I'm getting at, because I'm scratching that up, at a 10% rate of return, you double your money. Okay, you put $100,000 in the S&P 500 index fund over at Vanguard, which is probably a pretty good choice. And you put it in there for 7 years, and give or take, if you shake it out over a long period of time, you probably double it in 7 years. I got $200,000. But is it $200,000? The answer is no. You had inflation, it doesn't buy as much. Your rent went up over the last 5 years, food has gone up over the last 5 years, gas went up, cars went up, everything went up in price, so it doesn't buy as much. So to keep up with buying power, you take the rate of return, 10%, minus the inflation rate, 3%, you got 7% left, right? How long does it take to double that? 10 years. Okay, this makes it real easy. You don't even need fingers or toes or an account to figure this out. But if you're 20, you go to 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, you got 5 doublings. It's real simple. $1 goes to what? 2, 4, 8, 16, $32. So every dollar turns into $32 in real buying power. That's real money in today's dollars. Okay? Because someday you'll look back and call these the good old days, because every one of you here are going to make $250,000. It's not going to buy any more than $80,000 job now. Just the way it is. Okay? When I graduated, $3.35 was the minimum wage. They haven't raised it since '98. The truth is that you could buy, $1 a gallon gas. My first house in the late '80s, and that was still at the end of inflation, was $52,000. My house now is $400,000. Not any richer than it was before. I just play with bigger numbers, add a zero to it, and that's what it is. And that's life. So you want to keep up with inflation. So every 10 years, you want to double. We know that a $5 doubling every dollar we put in is going to give us a real rate of return of 32 times. So $1 is going to turn $32. Now, you may not think that's a big deal now, but if you do this by scale, then you don't have to work until you're 80. And in my office, I see clients come in with 80, 85 years old, 30-year mortgage, working a job. They have to. And that's sad. I work a job at my age because I like doing it. I didn't like it, I go home. I work fewer hours now than I used to. I don't say it too loud to potential employees or clients, things like that, because then they're all afraid of quit. But the truth is, you want to be in a position where you're financially independent. You can choose your course. Choose what you want to do. If you want to do missionary work, if you want to work in maybe a shelter, like an animal shelter, or whatever it may be. I have an employee that she's working in that direction. She's just well there, which is a problem for me because they don't want to do what they want to do that. Okay? If you're broke as an employer, I own you. If you're financially independent, you won't be. It's the future. And I say that in very rude ways. The reason why, if you're broke, what are you going to do? You're going to take these increasingly garbage jobs at minimum wage that hasn't increased in 25 years. And what are you going to do? You're going to say, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Please don't let the check bounce, sir. The whole 725, you're too generous, sir. What are you going to do? You're hungry. What? No, we didn't put on this thing here. You don't have any loans. Why do you think Dave Ramsey goes ballistic with it? And guys, here's how you solve your problem. I'll buy a $30,000 car. Doesn't cost me anything. Repairs are lower. I'm good to go. $600 a month. So how do you handle that? Because now my budget's out of whack. Put groceries on the credit card. You know, the fly that's buzzing down. So what I want to give you is power, and power in a case like this is having the ability to do what you want, which generally means financial independence. That doesn't mean you can't do everything you want. You can't go out there and, if you see a fireman, you can't get in the knee. Or a police officer, that'll be a real quick way to get in the free ride. So, but the rule of 72, and how you're gonna double your lunch. Now, what we want to do is we want to shave some money off of this. And I'm even willing to take some of my sinking fund money and invest it. Because if you are saving money for a car or for a house and it's 5 years out, I'm okay with putting it into an index fund. We're just going to make 10% per year, on average, some years more, some years less. I'm okay with that. But if you're going to buy a car or a house in the next 2 years, then you don't, because the risk of being down is a problem. That would be an issue. So the first thing we want to do is, we know that if you take money out of your pay, they're going to give you a 401k. When you take money out, let's say just $100, round number, be any one you want. Let's argue your employer is going to match you $100 to put in $100. Where does that money come from for real? Okay, so let's look at it this way. Here's your money, and it's this great big mountain. They pay you a paycheck and they put it in dollar bills. They put it on a big pile. When you take some money off for your 401k, where does it come from? It comes from the top of the stack. Well, why is that important? Why do we care to come from the top of the stack? Because down here is your 0% tax bracket. Here's your 10% tax bracket. Here's your 12% tax bracket. Oh, by the way, Wisconsin, for all of this, added another 6.27%. We'll just say 6 for argument's sake, 18%. That's almost 1 in every $5. Put in $100, how much does it cost you? Less than that. Take 18 off. Right? Cost $82. Cost you $82 to have $100 in net worth. You are now $100 richer, and the government just gave you $18. Okay. Now, here's your $100. Or you can put it into a Roth and pay the taxes. Your tax bracket's low. Maybe your tax bracket is 0 because you may not be making in high school. Probably not making more than $12,000 a year company. I should ask that. If you do the Roth version, it's not deductible. Okay. No, it's okay. I don't wanna ask too personal questions, but you seem to have, whenever you speak in front of a group, by the way, you focus on one person generally, or two or three. That's how you speak in front of a group. That's you're looking at the whole group. I don't see any people, one or two or three. And what I do is I pick out the people that have something that are going to interact with me. And because you have a job and doing these things, and you seem to be interacting, that's why I'm going to you. Now, anybody else should jump in. You should interact the rest of you. The thing is, she's going to get it. The rest of you are going to get it. Yet, this is your life. So let's say we do $100 into a Roth, you haven't paying tax. But remember, your employer's gonna match. So even if we argue this per month, okay, $100 from you and $100 and from the employer, another $100, we're gonna be doing $2,400 per year. Okay. Now, some of that's gonna come out of here, so it's not gonna cost you $2,400. This is the government saying, here's some money. Now, if it's a traditional retirement account, you have to pay tax on it when you take it out. That's the way it works. For the Roth, it's not, it's tax free no matter what. Now, remember, how high do you think taxes can go? Let me show you how bad this can get. So if you people say, I make a lot of money, I'm okay. So Wisconsin goes to about 7.5%, but you have to make over 450 for that. So you're generally going to pay about 6.27. That's 99%. Federal goes up to 35%. We're at one of the lowest tax brackets in the last 80 years. Okay? You have to go back, I think, to the 1920s. So you're at 35%. And you'll say, well, geez, Keith, that's only 42.5%. Ain't I a happy camper? I say, yeah, you forgot your FICA at 7.65. So we'll add another 7.5%, 5, and what do you got? We got 50%. The government, when you work your job, is half for you and half for me. We don't want, we want to, that's why everybody wants a tax plan to get out of this. That's why it's important to come off the top of the pile when you're doing this. When you're in a lower tax bracket, I'm going to probably want you to do a Roth because who cares? Your tax bracket's low. And remember, this is going to double 5 times, and we know we're going to go times 32. So it's real simple. That $100 for the first month, we just add 2 zeros to 32. You got $3,200. If it's in a Roth, it's tax free. Now your employer's going to put in some money too. That's going to be traditional. It's going to get taxed when it comes out. So you get another $3,200 from the employer portion. But because you got to pay tax when you take that out, right? It's not worth $3,200. It's worth less. I don't know how much less, but it's going to be less. So I think that when you look at your W-2, you want to have a retirement account if you can. When you look at your W-2 that I put in, below the letter D, I have 2 A's, AA. What AA stands for is the Roth provision of 401k. Don't get a tax deduction now. But if you're older like me, it has less value. Because remember, this is 1 month. So let's say you did this for 5 years. That's times 60. So you take 3/3. So you take times 2. So we're gonna go back here. We're gonna say you have 3,200. We know that your $100 is going to turn into $3,200 per month for you, and from your employer's contribution, total $6,400. That $100 is worth $6,400 to you in today's money at some point in the future. Unless you plan to die. But this is only 1 month. If you do it for 5 years, and then remember our original example, you work till 24, you put money away, and then your doppelganger then goes from 25 on, and he loses still, Well, this is why, because it's real easy. If you want to go times 10, you just add a 0. And in this case, then you just got to multiply by 6 because it's 60 ones, right? 5 times 12 is 60 ones. So I my calculator, then I can get pretty close just on the back of my hand. And I just go ahead, I go 12, 18, 19. I have $192,000 tax-free. And I have another $192,000 that is going to be subject, 192, that is going to be subject to tax. How much money do you need to retire? That's the question, right? So when am I financially independent that I do not have to work anymore and the employer no longer owns me? Here's the number. This is not a hard and fast rule. I think it's a little on the high side for some things, but I don't think, not necessarily. So it's a good number to use as a starting point. And that is the 4% rule. What the 4% rule says is this. If you have $1 million times 4% is $40,000 per year, you're never gonna run out. Historically, it's never failed. It's what we're looking at as a failure rate. How can, if I retire, do I ever fail and have to go back to work where I get owned again? Okay. And by the way, if you think that I'm being a little dramatic with the ownership, you do realize when you get a mortgage, what the word mortgage means, right? The word mort means death, and the word gage means pledge. It is a death pledge. That is your mortgage. It's not a loan on my house. You just sold your soul to the First National Bank or whatever. So we had this 190. So we have about $400,000. Now the goal is to put in more and do it for more than 5 years. But we know that we're going to have close to $400,000, of which half is tax free. The rule of 42, the 4% rule is also, I like to call it the 25 times rule. And how you do it is this. So if somebody says to me, I have $1 million, how much does the 4% rule say I have per year to live? $40,000. And if somebody comes to me and I ask them a different question, how much do you need to retire? Well, if I had $40,000 a year, I'm pretty good to go. Times 25, $1 million. This is backwardization of the same formula. Now, this is real simple. You don't have to go through this. This is going through it really quick. What you do is you sit down with pen and paper and you take some notes at home. You watch this video when it comes out. You look at the little tags. Nobody has to know. You don't have to feel embarrassed. You don't have to feel like you're a geek or anything. Not that Bill Gates did that bad being a geek, but and most of these tech guys. Write down those numbers and think about it. Look at what rent costs. Look at what utilities cost. Look at what these things are going to be. Cost of the car, cost of the house. Find how you can save some money by putting some money away. And how fast you can build it up. You don't need a financial calculator. You can go online and do this. Do some rule of 72. Times 70, okay? Basically, you're going to double your buying power over 10 years. You're 50 years old, you got 1 or 2. You're 20 years old, you got a lot more. You got 5, 6. Remember, when you're 70, you're still not going to cash everything in. You're still going to keep some of your money invested and growing. Some of that money's going to go for 8 or 6 or 7 or 8 doublings. That's where, remember the grain of rice on the first piece of the first day of the calendar, you give me 1 grain of rice, and the second you give me 2 grains, and the third day you give me 4. And in the first week, you think you're going to starve? The king thinks you're going to starve. You don't, because you know by the 30th of the month, he can't possibly create enough grain, enough rice to give you your wage. So you double it 30 times, the numbers become huge. 10, 20 zeros after the number 1. So you don't have to get 30. So I guess you guys are looking at me kind of so that's why I wanted this to be on the video, because I think you guys got to go back to it. You look at the markers on the video. The concept, being wealthy, having financial independence is simple and easy. There's a lot more than this, but if you had just this, you're a millionaire. And I think we can agree that once you hit 7 figures, you're pretty much ready to go. Let's say you took a part-time job just to cover the bills to enjoy yourself, and you let this go for another 1 round. 1 million goes to 2 million. Sorry, that's just the way it is. The 4% rule says that you're only assuming you're only going to have a 4% draw. If you take 4%, it's assuming that historically numbers don't work. We're literally saying, if we go through the Great Depression, we survive. Some nod, some people kind of getting it, some people. I like to ask some questions here. In the back row. Hello, hello. What do you think about early retirement? And understand, let me define retirement, by the way, because I harp on this in my blog. By the way, I have this right here, so you know my blog if you want to look at it. It does have some tough tax stuff in it, but I also talk an awful lot about living a good life, which means living the life you planned, that you dream, that you want. I talk about some pretty strange things that have happened in my life, things I did. I also kind of rail against traveling because I don't care to travel, but I don't mind if you do. I kind of rail against people that want to retire early because I don't want to retire. I love what I do. If you start your own business and you hate your job, you only have you to blame. That's really foolish, okay? You don't want to do that. You want to get the financial independence as soon as possible. It doesn't mean you have to retire, but when you do retire, if that's the word that gets used, remember one thing. Never, ever, 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 ever retire from something. I hate my job. I won the lottery. I'm out of here. You'll fail. Don't retire from something, retire to something. I really want to do missionary work. I really want to do whatever it is. I want to start my own business. I want to start a dog kennel. I want to start anything. I want to, and for some people, I want to travel the world. How many of you guys know what a gap year is? You guys do, really?
Yeah.
Well, you guys are thinking about this stuff already. What do you define as a gap year? What would you, if I said, my buddy over here is taking a gap year, what would I mean?
Oh,
So like I don't know. Yeah.
I think people, now as a business owner, I really don't take a gap year, but as an accountant, I get like 9 months of the year where it's kind of a gap anyway. A gap year is taking time off. There's nothing wrong if you have the finances. Okay, so you don't have to reach that $1 million goal, so I need this much money. You can take a gap year in most situations, which means you could be in your 20s, and sometimes it's better in your 20s. It may seem far away, I don't know, maybe not for you guys, but 20s is not that far away. There are things that I would not do today because my body won't cash that check, okay? Or if it tried to, I'd probably die. But when you're 20, maybe you know what El Capitan is? It's a huge, big rocky Yosemite. It's a big mountain climb. It's kind of one of the things mountain climb. That's for my age and my shape. Probably not a good idea for you to start there. You guys know what Douglas Tower is? Okay, in Wyoming, that's also a huge mountain climbing thing. And some people have a goal. I mean, it's tough to be a missionary if you're starting out when you're older. If you're going to Africa, it's going to be tough. But it's easier when you're younger, and then you have an advantage because I have experience. So if I was mountain climbing for the last 40 years, okay, I can El Capitan, I can go to Douglas Tower, I can go ahead and I can climb these things, probably. But starting out, it doesn't work. So having a gap year isn't a problem. And you guys are sitting back here because you don't have the experience. But once you have a job, I want to make a prediction that it's not a real wild prediction because it's real easy because I'm right. That is, I predict that some of you, the next 10 years, will have a job you don't like. But you won't quit and you'll keep it because you have no choice. Now, there's two things when you have that job. You can look into the future with your crystal ball and say, I'm going to be doing this for the next 50 years of my life, and there is no way out. That crazy accountant, that blog, said I could get out of here in 10 years or less. I'm going to save it. I have 5 max. Well, that's an attitude change. Or you might figure out, I'm already there. I can get out of here. Have a gap year and find a different job. You can choose your own path in what you're doing. The math is real easy. Deadpan stares. But I think, I know, I might be older, but I remember sitting in your chair. It sinks in more than you think. And, sometimes you shrug it off, it's not that big a deal, you don't care. But then it comes back later, and you do care, and because it comes real. So. I get talking about all that. I'm kidding. If you would like one of these, I will give them to you. It's just a website. And if you Google wealthy accountant, you can safely skip anything that says things that are heavy duty tax. My next one's going to be on moving to Puerto Rico and being a bona fide resident of Puerto Rico paying no tax. Hey, you probably won't skip that one. However, my last one that's up, I put up at Christmas time was Christmas every day of the year. And I talked about a situation that happened in my life about 20, 25 years ago outside my house on New Year's Eve. Pretty interesting. So, and you're going to have those experiences too. And you can either close the curtain, and you know what I mean, you read the blog post, you can close the curtain, or you can step outside and make a difference to the world. Change the world like Bill Gates, or like Steve Jobs said. Okay, guys, any questions? Questions? No? So.
Nothing outside of just running, asking to run the entire thing.
Yeah, that's why I think it's kind of important that it was recorded.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put little
Yeah.
tags so you can go right to spots that, you don't have to watch an hour and a half. If you just, I wanna learn this part, I just wanna see this 5 or 10 minutes, get right to it. As soon as I get this, I will go ahead and edit it and drop it on YouTube, and you can look at it anytime. And 5 years from now, you know, when you get a job and you're looking at some of this stuff, it is really based, I mean, I'm just covering briefly covering the surface. It is certainly enough to make a difference in your life, but you're probably not gonna stop there. If you're serious about doing this, if you're gonna say, well, geez, I wanna get some money so I can retire when I'm somewhere in my 30s, or at least have financial independence so I can choose my own course. Okay, then you're gonna wanna come back to something like this. It probably will a little further. But, you know, just don't be the guy that's 60, 70, 80 years old with just that much debt. I mean, that's what, what's Dave Ramsey's whole spiel? What's his, he made $100 million. What is his whole thing? What is his whole story? No debt, stay on debt. See, if I would have added debt into this, you spiral down so fast. Then digging out is a lot of hard work. And then it's doable. I mean, Dave Ramsey has a great program. You can get out of debt and you can do it. It's just gonna hurt. And I mean, when I say hurt, I mean it's really going to hurt. Because when he says beans and rice and ramen and things like that, it's kind of fun in college a little bit, but it gets old real quick when that's all you have. And sometimes that's all you have to get out. So that's my spiel, guys.
Thinking about that.
Yeah. Don't try to digest it all at once. You have to be exposed to it. You can read on it. I wouldn't even recommend you read the whole night or watch the whole 90 minutes. It's just go to the points you want. When it comes to like your W-2 and that kind of stuff, how many times something? Yeah, I don't know that stuff. But seeing the math and being, it's not like contract, it means I'm encouraging you to do some kind of behavior. So if I spend less than I earn, I think there's some of that too. If I spend less than I earn, I win. Save less than you, spend less than you earn, put it in an index fund at Vanguard. What else is there? Oh, that's it. Wait,